Why would you pardon someone who claims they did nothing wrong? Well, tonight we're exposing Biden's desperate attempt to shield Anthony Fauci and Liz Cheney from justice. As we speak, the White House is preparing preemptive pardons for the very architects of America's suffering. Fauci, the man who locked down our nation, pushed deadly mandates, and lied to Congress about gain-of-function research, and Cheney, the J6 winch hunt leader, who turned her back on American values. Senator Rand Paul confirms what we have known all along. These aren't acts of mercy, they are admissions of guilt. And just as Biden tries to cover up Fauci's aging crimes, Americans everywhere are fighting their own battle with aging. But unlike these deep state pardons, there's a legitimate solution. While Fauci faces potential accountability for misleading America about health science, our collagen formula actually delivers real results. So don't let time be your enemy. Visit healthwithgary.com and take advantage of our 51% off special. Unlike Fauci's failed policies, this is science that actually works. Yes, make sure you get there and join the thousands of Americans who've discovered the real path to wellness. Donald Trump on Capitol Hill just moments ago, dissing Liz Cheney, saying she lost by 42 points and he doesn't care about her. He cares about the American people. Yes, Liz Cheney, she is on the list. Let's go to that moment.
Liz Cheney, Biden pardoned Liz Cheney. What's your message for President Biden? He said he...
Oh, I thought it was ridiculous that he did that, but we have more important things to talk about. Liz Cheney was, she lost in the Republican Party, as you know, in her state, by the biggest margin in the history of a politician running for Congress. She lost by like 42 points. Nobody's ever lost like that. So I don't care about Liz Cheney. I care about these people.
President deportations. What is game one going to look like for the Trump administration?
Number one, we're closing the border. It's going to be closed very strongly. It's going to be closed. And we're going to have to take people out that are criminals. We have people from jails from all over the world and from mental institutions. And as you know, they're going to have to be removed. And it's one of the reasons I won the election in a landslide. The people of this country don't want murderers walking down their farms or their streets or their cities. As you know, we had thousands of people that murdered other people that were in jail that were released into our country. Many of those people murdered more than one person, many of them, about 42% supposedly. We want them out of our country, and we're going to get a country back again, and we're going to be really governed by common sense. These are the principles of common sense. We're not going to be governed by stupid people. We're going to common sense. We're going to be respected all over the world again very soon.
We're going to be respected real soon. 12 hours ago, Fauci, provably, this is Richard H. Ebright writing on X, Fauci provably violated federal policies on gain of function and enhanced potential pandemic pathogen research, provably committed conspiracy to defraud and perjury, and probably is culpable for the pandemic that killed 20 plus million and cost $25 plus trillion. And there was a transcript that was leaked by the USA Today interview transcript in Joe Biden's last scheduled sit-down interview with a print outlet. Biden talks preemptively pardoning Liz Cheney and Anthony Fauci. Hunter Biden's pardon the CHIPS Act, biggest fears of a Trump presidency. Listen.
Transcripts between Joe Biden supporters have encouraged you to. In one of the questions, the interviewer Paige asked Biden, quote, some of your supporters have encouraged you to issue preemptive pardons to people like Liz Cheney and Anthony Fauci, who Trump has threatened to target. Will you do that? Biden says, well, a little bit of it depends on who he puts in what positions. If, in fact, here's how. I was very straightforward with Trump when he got elected. I invited him immediately to the White House. I spent 2 hours with him. He was very complimentary about some of the economic things I had done, and he thought I was leaving with a good record kind of thing. I tried to make it clear that there was no need, and it was counterintuitive for his interest to go back and try to settle scores. Paige said, and did he give you an answer on what he was going to do? Biden said, well, he didn't, but he didn't say, no, I'm going to, he didn't reinforce it. He just basically listened. And she says, so you haven't decided yet. you're still assessing the issue. And Biden says, well, no, I have not. For example, I think there are certain people, like if he were to, I don't want to name their names, I'll tell you off the record, and then it's redacted. But there are other parties that were following through on to determine that, rectifying some of the correcting powder cocaine difference, things like that.
What does that even mean?
She says more traditional kind of pardons, and he says, yeah. She says, yeah, speaking of pardons, every parent can understand why you'd want to protect your son. Do you have any concerns that your pardon of Hunter sets a precedent for future presidents, one that might be open to abuse? He says, I hope not, because I meant what I said when I was asked whether I was going to pardon my son. But then I found out two factors. Number one, that he had paid all his taxes. Actually, he didn't pay his taxes. Somebody else paid them for him. He paid them late. He was fighting a drug problem, and he beat it. He's been square and sober for almost 6 years now. This was back in in 2000. And what year was it? Anyway, a long time ago. It wasn't that long ago, by the way. He paid it all, and there were hundreds of people with only 3, 4, or 500,000 who were moving on civilly. He paid all his taxes. He paid the back taxes. He was late. He should have paid it on time, and that he was in a court throughout a plea deal that was agreed to. And then the second thing I found out was that on his purchasing a Pew Pew at the time, you have to sign a form if you're under the influence of anything. Well, I don't even know whether they got straight on the signing of the form. But the point was, no one's ever been tried on that. Nobody. And then he just...
So, this is the big story today. We're finding out that these pardons for Fauci are going to go through. Biden confirms he's considering preemptively pardoning Anthony Fauci. It is now 100% confirmed. Joe Biden is considering a preemptive pardon for Fauci, the top doctor during the COVID pandemic. Just in, Joe Biden is still considering preemptive pardons for Liz Cheney, Anthony Fauci, according to the USA Today. Biden wants his legacy to consist of giving a free pass to a man whose thirst for power cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans. Insurrection Barbie. I hear Joe Biden wants to preemptively pardon Anthony Fauci. Well, we have 27 Republican attorneys general, and every single one of them should bring a state case against him. Oh, yeah. That would make Democrats pause next time they want to issue blanket preemptive pardons. Yeah, so you could go ahead and you could pardon him at the federal level, Joe. What she's pointing out is that you have these, at the state level, you can charge him criminally. Find something, right? Right? What is it? What is that saying? Show me the person, I'll find you the crime. Isn't that what they tried to do to Donald Trump? Unusual Wales 8 hours ago. Joe Biden is considering preemptive pardons for Fauci and Cheney, according to the New York Times as well. Why would Joe Biden preemptively pardon Anthony Fauci if he weren't guilty of any crimes against humanity? The betting odds are skyrocketing now, up to 39% on Kalshi. And here's back December 4th of 2024. Here's what Joe Biden had to say about Anthony Fauci.
A special thanks to one of the great public health officials, a true hero, who we've led this fight against HIV/AIDS, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Where is Anthony?
He salutes him.
Anthony, you're a good man. God love you.
Oh, man, he salutes him. Tucker Carlson posted this just a few hours ago. Yes, a preemptive pardon for Fauci is infuriating, but it's also an admission that he's a criminal, which he is. Thank you, Dr. Fauci has all the details. You'll find it at tuckercarlson.com. And I guess this is a trailer for a film that's available at tuckercarlson.com.
Before the
President Biden to pardon
Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Dr. Anthony Fauci. President Biden is considering issuing preemptive pardons.
Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract
that statement.
Those individuals likely caused a pandemic that killed 20 million people and cost $25 billion. I think Anthony Fauci should go to jail, honestly.
They are gain-of-function viruses because they were animal viruses that became more transmissible in human, and you funded it. And you admit the truth.
Some conspiracy theories are wrong. Many are right, actually.
And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Available at tuckercarlson.com. Remember when Ron DeSantis said this?
He's the grab, and I'm just sick of seeing him. I know he says he's going to retire. Someone needs to grab that little elf and chuck him across the Potomac.
Speaking about Dr. Fauci, here's Representative Jayapal saying Biden is right to preemptively pardon J6 committee members, and she backs President Biden should he preemptively pardon members of the partisan J6 committee. And she was talking with Jim Acosta on CNN. Listen.
Go after them. And one of the other things that President Biden said in that interview is he's still thinking about whether or not to issue these preemptive pardons to protect people like Dr. Anthony Fauci and former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. If the Trump Justice Department were to be super politicized, I suppose, and go after them in a new Trump administration, do you think the President Biden should do that on his way out?
Well, I think the fact that Trump and these MAGA Republicans are continuing to deny that January 6th happened, and they are continuing to say that they're going to go after people who demanded accountability for the worst violent assault on the United States Capitol since the War of 1812, I think is something that everyone should be concerned about. And I think that the president is right to, preemptively pardon those individuals who were simply trying to uphold the Constitution. And I think it is a sad day in this country that I still serve, Jim, with 137 Republicans who are election deniers. They don't believe that Biden won the election legitimately in 2020. They're still spreading misinformation about the 2020 election. The ones that were here were part and parcel of trying to contest that election on the House floor on January 6th and denying the violence that happened. I was trapped in the gallery that day. I will not forget how close we came to losing our democracy that day. And I don't think any American should allow that memory to fade, because it is absolutely essential for the future that that Donald Trump does not pardon these insurrectionists who were convicted, and that we discourage this kind of violence. It's stunning to me that we even have to, continue to have the conversation, but it's so important that we do.
It's important that we talk about pardoning the J6ers, the ones who are political prisoners, not the ones that you all targeted. Here is Dr. Fauci who granted exception in Wuhan lab. Now, this was published in May of 2021. Tucker Carlson. I remember that time very well. We were covering it very, very closely.
WHO's investigating more than any other single living American. Tony Fauci is responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic. At the time the outbreak began last fall, the Wuhan lab was conducting experiments on how to make bat viruses infectious to human beings. Those experiments were funded by American tax dollars. Their funding approved and directed by Tony Fauci in Washington. The WHO's investigation into the origins of the virus was fraudulent, and that matters to public health globally. But one thing you'll notice is that Tony Fauci did not say that. Why? Because once again, he is implicated in it personally. The gain-of-function research that Peter Daszak was bragging about in the video we just showed you had in fact been banned explicitly by the U.S. government. There was a federal moratorium on the funding of exactly the kind of gain-of-function experiments that went on in the Wuhan lab to disastrous effects. So why didn't the U.S. government halt its funding of the lab in Wuhan? That is a central question, and Nicholas Wade, to his great credit, looked into it. And here's what he found. Quote, someone wrote a loophole into the moratorium The moratorium specifically barred funding of any gain-of-function research that increased the pathogenicity of the flu, MERS, or SARS viruses. But then a footnote on page 2 of the moratorium document states that, quote, an exception from the research pause may be obtained if the head of the U.S. government funding agency determines that the research is urgently necessary to protect the public health or national security. And that's exactly the loophole that was exploited. Who signed off on this? Tony Fauci, possibly along with Francis Collins, the director of the NIH, invoked that special exemption in order to keep funding the Wuhan lab and the deadly experiments that were going on there. This wouldn't have happened if Tony Fauci didn't allow it to happen. That is clear. It's an amazing story. It is a shocking story. In a functional country, there would be a criminal investigation currently underway into Tony Fauci's role in the COVID pandemic that has killed millions and halted our country and changed it forever. So why isn't there a criminal investigation into Tony Fauci's role in this pandemic? More than any...
Oh, you see, but there will be. That was Tucker Carlson. You see, there will be a criminal investigation. With the new DOJ, the new FBI, the new Trump administration. See, this video came out in 2021. So all this information has been simmering and simmering and simmering. And Biden knows it and Fauci knows it, that they are guilty of these crimes. So that is why they are now strongly and still considering these pardons preemptively for Anthony Fauci. And it all came out again today in the USA Today. Here's when Fauci admitted that he was colluding with Chinese communists.
Minor collaboration as part of a subcontract of a grant. We had a collaboration with some Chinese scientists and Chinese.
Yeah, Freudian slip there. Fauci seeking a pardon from Biden. This should not happen. And here is this is a clip from the Joe Rogan podcast. RFK Jr. is going to have so much of an impact on healthcare that they're talking about preemptively pardoning Fauci. This is on Joe Rogan.
I wonder what impact RFK Jr. is going to have on the delivery of healthcare now.
Well, he's going to have so much of an impact that they're talking about preemptively pardoning Fauci. How do you pardon someone that didn't do a crime?
Preemptively. That's fine.
How are you pardoning someone where he's not only is he not convicted of a crime, he's not even tried, he's not accused, he's not indicted? What do you...
I guess that's called blanket immunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's never been done before. There's never been preemptive pardons for people.
Yeah, that's an interesting
that
idea.
may have been committing crimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
Yeah. I wonder what impact RFK Jr. is going to have.
It's weird indeed. Oh my. We got some more here for you. Here is Fauci claiming in 2022 that he didn't recommend locking anything down. But the clip from 2020 reveals the exact opposite. Watch this.
Recommended president that we first of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down, and the record will show, Neil, that we didn't recommend shutting everything down. I recommended to the president that we shut the country down, and that was a very difficult decision because I knew it would have serious economic consequences, which it did.
Yeah, here's Karine Jean-Pierre refusing to deny that Biden's preparing the pardons.
An unusual. Some of the names that have been floated around preemptive pardons, it would just be such an unusual, extraordinary step. We talked about in the news, we've seen Liz Cheney, Dr. Fauci. You're talking about the preemptive pardoning. Right. I understand you don't want to get ahead of the president's thinking, but are any of those names wrong or still? Can you tell? I mean, do you want to tell us anything about?
It would be a bad move on my behalf if I preempted the president or previewed anything that the president was thinking about, considering, and so this is something that he's going to talk with his team about. And I just don't have anything beyond that for you.
Some of the names that have been
just don't have anything beyond that for you. But the USA Today transcripts of the interview tell a different story. Here's Senator Rand Paul.
In Trump's preemptive pardons for those in Trump's crosshairs. And it says those who could face exposure include such members of Congress as Jan 6 Committee Senator-elect Adam Schiff, GOP Rep Liz Cheney. Also mentioned by Biden aides is a pardon for Anthony Fauci, the former head of the NIAID, who became a lightning rod for criticism during COVID. Now, we're told that the president isn't part of this formulation, that it's coming from staffers, and that these individuals, as far as we know, have not asked for a pardon. But what's your take on the fact that this is under discussion?
I think it's a real possibility that Anthony Fauci could get a pardon. He is at risk. I've referred him twice to the Department of Justice. The Biden administration has ignored it, but we have a great deal of evidence that he lied to Congress, which is a felony punishable by 5 years. The proof that we have that he's lying is from his own emails. So we have his private emails gotten by court order, and they contradict what he was saying publicly in a way such that I think we could prove that he has lied to Congress, which is a felony. As far as other pardons, I fully suspect the president will pardon his brother coming up, too. He's protecting Hunter, who has a criminal record, a long and storied criminal record, taking $80,000 a year from a large business in Ukraine. I think also there will be a consideration of whether or not President Biden may want to pardon himself as well. So I think the Biden syndicate of making money did act illegally, and who knows, maybe the president will even pardon himself.
All right. So just real quick, a preemptive pardon before any charges have been brought. You expect that to happen for Anthony Fauci?
After seeing what they did with Hunter Biden, who has a host of convictions, a host of wrongdoing, and they gave him a pardon, not just on what he's been accused of anything he may be accused of over a 10-year period.
It's just like the plea deal that the judge laughed at. It's essentially the...
Yeah. This is all on the table, friends. USA Today breaking the news today. Here's some more.
Universities.
This is when Fauci basically said he was going to put a pressure campaign on the United States people.
Once people feel empowered and protected legally, you were going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated. Yeah. Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
That's exactly what you meant when you said making it hard for people to live without getting a vaccination. You affected people's ability to work, travel, be educated, to actually flourish in American society, to self-determine, as we're all given God-given rights. Shame on you. You inspired and created fear through mass mandates, school closures, vaccine mandates that have destroyed the American people's trust in our public health institution.
Yep. Behind bars is where he belongs, without question. So I'm sure this is going to continue to develop. And that's the headline today. Biden confirms he's considering preemptively pardoning Anthony Fauci. Now, the timing of these pardons isn't coincidental, Patriots. With Trump's return to the White House just days away, the deep state is scrambling to protect its own. Fauci's lies about COVID, the Wuhan lab, and those deadly mandates, all potentially buried under presidential pardons. Liz Cheney's role in the J6 witch hunt swept under the rug. So here's the question that should keep every American awake tonight. If these people truly served our country honorably, why do they need presidential pardons before they've even been charged? Drop a comment below. Make a statement with our new MAGAvengers collection available at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. It's linked below.